All right, welcome everyone for Offline Power Platform User Group. Thanks everyone for joining today for the event. And with a quick introduction, Raghavan, who is the key organizer for the Offline Power Platform User Group, doesn't need any introduction. He's a Microsoft MVP and also expert in Power Pages. And myself, I joined the leadership team recently, and I'm working for Velrada, as you can see from my background, as a solution architect, focusing exclusively on field service and other components of Dynamics 365 CRM. And we also have Greg Olsen, who is an architect from Datacom. And we have our speaker today, Devendra, connecting all the way from Perth. And he's going to share us lots of valuable insights on the pipelines and share the practical examples of how the pipelines can be used and the best practices and step-by-step demonstrations. When I say pipelines, I'm talking about the Power Platform pipelines, exclusively like for the makers. And he's going to share lots of real-world applications and case studies because he's working for Rio Tinto as an senior architect, and they have done lots of Power Platform, Power Apps implementation in-house, and it's amazing to know how Devendra and his team is managing these things in terms of deployment and the governance. Without further ado, I'll pass it to Devendra.
Hey, thank you. I'll share my screen.
Yes, sir.
Thanks so much. Yeah, just started sharing. Hopefully, it should come up. Please let me know if it is visible.
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay, awesome. Thanks. Hello, everyone. My name is Devendra Velegandla. I'll be talking about Power Platform pipelines. So this one is pretty close to what I do at my work. So again, I just wanted to make it clear. It's pretty new feature, not perfect. A lot of things are still being in the improvement phase. So happy to have a conversation and put your hand up or use the chat if you got any questions, comments. I know there are quite a lot of tools available for the application lifecycle management, but specifically why Power Platform pipelines. And I'm pretty excited about this particular concept. So happy to share some of the lessons and challenges. If you don't know about me, I work at Rio Tinto as a Power Platform architect, mainly enabling business users developing solutions using Power Platform and related technologies. We got a large user base who is building solutions. So that's where my focus is, helping them use the technology and solve their daily problems. Yeah, currently working on governance and administration part. But, my background was I was a .NET dev and spent many years on SharePoint before I transitioned to Power Platform in 2018. And I was an MVP for a few years. That was on SharePoint. Right? And I also blog at myfullname.com, so feel free to check that out. And happy to connect on socials on LinkedIn. Right? Okay, so what we will be talking about today is why and what is ALM, application lifecycle management. So most of the times, people talk about developing solutions, how you want to make people building a lot of solutions, right? Okay, end user got a problem, then okay, let's build the solution. Many people doesn't think about end-to-end life cycle until it comes to okay, this particular app need some attention, then what should we do? So that's where I think people would be focusing a bit later, but it's very important to understand ALM in the overall picture. And then I'll talk about briefly, as in mostly Power Platform pipelines, along with the other options that we have. But the focus for today is Power Platform pipelines. And there are a few demos that I have planned, and then the lessons learned and challenges, which might be interesting. Right. So why ALM? Like I said, any organization will look at okay, how many people are developing solutions. So initially, there might be only few if you're just getting started out with Power Platform. Not many applications by build. Maybe these are the few users who are proactive. They might be already building solutions using other tools, which we call mostly shadow IT, doing applications with Excel and a lot of other tools. But with the Power Platform, they were pretty much the early adopters, right? And then they came to know about Power Platform and started building applications. And then over a period of time, what happens is a lot more people will get to know about Power Platform and then start building applications. So that's where the importance of application lifecycle management will happen, right? Some of these applications might be personal productivity solutions, maybe department level solutions. So this is approximately like you see in the organization, 80% of them might be a personal productivity and department level solutions, and most of them which being done by business users, and 20% maybe enterprise level applications and complex applications. And what happens is out of all these department level solutions, some of them becomes very important, right? Um, and I'm not sure how many here actually managing Power Platform. Um, Happy to put your hand up or say yes or no in the comment section. So most of the times the conversation would be something like this. At least, okay, we got quite few. Yeah, thanks, folks. Um, it's good to see you, few of the admins here, which is always feel like, yeah. So if you're managing Power Platform, I'm sure you might be like looking at some of the tools that are available, such as Starter Kit. Without that, admins will not be able to manage Power Platform. So let's say you got Starter Kit, and then you would be monitoring who is all developing solutions, and there is a usage metrics if you have configured properly, and then you go ahead and look at those metrics, and some of the applications out of which need an attention. Then you will say, okay, someone is building this application and it is being shared with a lot of people, and we got to talk to the makers, right? So then you'll go and obviously you can directly chat or send an email. However, mostly when you do the review process, and then you start the conversations, right? And then obviously, I think people from the business are always nice, and they don't know much about how this needs to be maintained, etc. So the first step is always going to be from the Power Platform team, right? So that's one way to go proactively and monitoring from the admin side. But this is mostly, if you look at this one, this is the reactive governance, right? The other side, once there is a maturity that happens, and then the same makers, they might be developing new application. Now they'll say, okay, I'm going to build a new application. I got a new requirement. Now I want to talk to you. So that's where this is where you see some of the business users proactively come to you, because you already started doing education, and all the guidelines and everything has been set up, um, and people in the business come to you and talk to you about, okay, this is what I want to do. Can you please help us? This is where what we also do internally is there is a SharePoint site that talks about environments and the process that they need to go through. So this is where, as an admin, I would say, yeah, could you please submit a request? This is basically starts with environment request process. Every time if someone is building solutions, the first building block that you need to provide them is an environment. So earlier in the conversation, they might have done it in the default environment, which is where most of the people got access to. But after some time, you need to provide them access, right? So as an admin, what you do is you ask them to fill a certain form, and either you could go ahead and automate that process, or you could provision fact after the fact, like manually, right? So there are both options. The question is, what kind of information are you looking for the end users to give you? Then based on that, you will decide that application need application lifecycle management, or how are you going to maintain that particular application. So this is at a very high level information that you might need to get from the business users, like what application are they building. The purpose is very important. The purpose is going to define how important for the business is. So this could be a lot more information that they could provide, and it could be a guideline where you go and have that further conversations about um, what that particular application is, right? And the data classification is the other one, where is it going to be just for the internal? Is it a confidential data that you're working with, or even highly confidential data? So you could ask that particular question. And then the business impact, how important is this particular application is for the business? And how many people actually are going to use this application? So it could be few people, 10 to 50, or maybe even 100. Or are we talking about even the enterprise level application using Power Platform? So those are some of the things that you would start capturing. And of course, region is important. If you're coming from Power Platform background, where you want to provision your environments closer to your region. Let's say you got more users in Asia or Australia or New Zealand, then that's where you wanted to provision those environments. Whereas if the user base is in US, then potentially you want to have environment in that region. And you would ask, like, who is going to maintain these applications? And admins are very important. And then there could be other metadata that is going to be useful for your organization. It could be department, function, even you could ask for value generation. So this is going to set the foundation for managing the applications, based on which either you could provide them at least two environments, um, which could be development and the production. And again, you need to consider a lot of business users doesn't understand everything, maybe even the support to transition and all those things. So you provide the minimum two set of environments. But let's say if the same request come from a partner or someone who is building pro dev applications, then you could go ahead and give them three at least, right? Where you'll have dev environment, test environment, and the prod environment. If they ask, yeah, you could give one more, which is for the user acceptance. Anyone here already doing the environment request automation, as in provisioning the environments, or how are you guys doing it? I'm keen to see if you're capturing any additional metadata when you're talking to your business teams. And this is the old one, right? It may not be very same in the cloud, but in the Power Platform, you at least want a dedicated Power Platform environment. If you got multiple people building solutions, especially you got a few more developers, then you want to give them dedicated development environments, then potentially getting deployed to one location, so that if you got any custom code and everything, it's just working in my machine. Anyway, so when it comes to business users, I think there is a feature called preferred solutions. So I just want to briefly touch upon that before we go to the next steps. Anyone hear about preferred solutions?
There is a
Uh,
question, Bharat, which all
Sorry, Chirag, you're saying something?
yeah, there is a question on the chat.
All right. Yeah. So yes, we are asking for which connectors and applications apps needs. Yeah, that's a good one, Mohan. So it's an important one to ask. So currently, what we are doing is we were basically providing them the information when they're provisioning the environments. But let's say if they ask for additional data connectors, then they might need to go through the process. But yeah, it's a good one. Thank you. So for a few demos that I have planned, this is where I think daily if you're an admin, you would be spending a lot of time here, or at least once in a while in a day. So I got three environments here. HR, test, prod, and dev environments. So I'll be using some of these environments for the demonstration. So for the preferred solution, when someone asked for, as in the number of environments, once you create them, at least for in the dev environment, it's still in the preview feature though, but I find it very useful because I always had a challenge explaining solutions for the people building solutions from the business. So this is going to help quite a lot. So if you go to environment and settings, within the features, you would see if you scroll on further, by default, these two might have been turned off, like Canvas apps and Cloud Flows. So this particular feature, what happens is if you enable both of them for the Canvas apps and Cloud Flows, so when you start creating a Canvas app or Cloud Flows by the end users, then those will get automatically added to the preferred solution. Okay, so that is one thing that I would recommend if you are giving them both the dev and prod environment to start with. So in this case, I have already enabled it. I also got few test users, which is the same a user that we got, Pradeep, which is in my dev tenant. So what we will do is if he's starting building solutions, we want those apps and flows to be part of a solution. So one option would be if you go to the solution, you will be able to set a particular solution as a preferred solution. So by default, it would be a common data services default solution is the one that will be set as a preferred solution. So earlier, when people creating apps and flows, those used to be set it to a default solution. Now that is that can be changed. So in this case, I was trying for this particular demo. I just created a POCs and then I was trying to add a few apps and the flows. The experience was it automatically creates connection references and everything get added to the solution, and even with the table. So let's give that a go. So I'm here. Maybe I'll go ahead and create a table, and then describe a new table. Create table to store incidents, and then so hopefully it should create a table, and then when I save it, that will get added to the preferred solution. So it picked up few columns. All I want to do is just go ahead and create. Once it creates, it should be part of that POC solution. So if I go back to the solution again, if I look at the POCs, so you can see now it got two tables, right? So I would say give it a go. Even with the cloud flows, it worked pretty well. I was trying an app with SharePoint as a data source. So if you use SharePoint as a data source, it does create environment variables for your site and the list. So this is where most of the business users would be starting, right? Unless until you practically have or even have the licenses for DataVars. So in this case, when you create an app with SharePoint data source, it does create couple of environment variables, right? And just taking a step back, when you create a new solution, it's basically, I think most of you might know, I assume. So you give all the information that is needed. All you've got to do is to make that as a preferred solution. So select that particular solution, and then So this one is already a preferred solution. That's why I'm not seeing that option. But if I go back, so you would see this option as it as preferred solution. So most of the components that are being created by the business users will get stored within the solution. Now what happens is once you provide them the pipelines, which I'm going to talk shortly now, then they will be able to see those pipelines here. Right? Cool. One thing though, of course, if you try to teach them about environment variables and other things, it would take a bit more time. But ideally, I would prefer create those environment variables then use it in the app. But this is still the a way to go for starting educating business users. Okay, right. So that's about the preferred solutions. But now continuation of your end users builds the solutions. But why do you need the ALM, right? Mostly you want to track those changes and you want to streamline the development process. And of course, potentially when most people started using those particular applications, you want to maintain them and operate them smoothly. Um, so that's where I think the ALM is going to be crucial. So is the pipelines. So this is diagram from MSDN article. It makes sense. You need to plan, depends on, for example, previously I was talking about the data that you're going to capture from the business users. So based on which, whether you want to plan, do you want to give them 2 environments or 3 or 4, and then whoever is going to develop those applications and potentially build and test properly, and then the deploy. So the deploy is where you will be using Power Platform pipelines and then maintain those applications, because Power Platform pipelines does provide an option, as in not similar to the source code that you could maintain, such as Azure DevOps and other things, but it still does a decent job that is good enough for end users to maintain, right? But one of the thing that is ALM health check. So most important one is your target solutions needs to be managed solution. That's one of the main goal for ALM health check. And of course, this needs to be automated 100%, which is good. Um, the source of truth is an important one. You won't be looking at the code level, but if you think in terms of the business users, still you want to track the version and how they are building solutions. So that's a very important one, right? So pipelines does provide an option. It stores the information in a repository, which I'm going to show you shortly. Not as in like at a granular level, but you can still have your managed and unmanaged solutions in the environment where you have pipelines running. And of course, you if you want, you can completely remove the developer environment. That's the goal, but there is always an isolation. And when your business teams wanted to make an improvements and they got new requirements from their stakeholders, then you still want to make changes without impacting the production. And one of the important thing where pipelines makes much more easier is most of the times when we talk about ALM, uh, I'm sure some of you here might have used Azure DevOps, GitHub Actions. They're all pretty good, but again, you need someone to have skill set, knowledge, and also the time to invest. A lot of times when you got applications that are being built by business, they might not have all the skill sets. For them, it's learning the different skill set is going to be challenge. They want something within the platform that makes easier things for them rather than learning something new is going to be more valuable, right? Um, so that's where I guess um, Power Platform pipelines is quite useful. So how does it work? So if you look at technically the Power Platform pipelines, is you got set of developer environments, maybe different users building solutions, and they got their own developer environments, and then you could deploy the solutions to the target environments. It could be just one environment or maybe multiple environments, right? Depends on the use case again. So what pipelines does is it got a pipeline host that hosts all the pipeline setup and deployment and other settings, right? So the pipeline setup is the key configuration one that you need to do if you want to configure from an admin point of view. I wish this can be automated. So I got a blog post from someone, Matt Collins. I think there is a way to automate this. So I might be trying in next few sprints, to be honest. But currently I think it's still a manual process where you might need to create pipelines and link your development environment so that your pipelines will be up and running, right? So as part of the pipelines, you need to link the development environment, and also you need to create the stages. The stages is going to be whether from dev to test, and then test to prod. It's always from the dev to test is going to be an unmanaged solution, and from test to prod is going to be managed. Yes, Nathan.
Quick question. Are you limited to managed solutions, or could you use unmanaged solutions in this if you wanted to?
Yeah, good question. From the dev to test, it's always unmanaged to managed, but from there onwards, it's always managed to managed.
Okay.
There is no support if you want to deploy managed solution alone from dev to test.
Yeah. Okay.
And there are quite few limitations. It's still like few months, I guess, early last year or sometime later, I guess, November or October. It got picked up. I think it's still they're adding features. Yeah.
Cool. Thanks, man.
Yeah, no worries. Right. So if you look at the linked development environments, where you can link multiple developer environments, which people are building solutions, and then you can have different stages, right? Where yeah, where you can deploy solutions. Yeah, just looking at the comment, Mohan got a question. How do you move master data from one environment to the other? Pipelines doesn't support the master data. Let's say if you got, so you might need to use some of the XRM tools, or maybe even the out-of-the-box migration options. Mohan, that makes sense. Right. So if you haven't configured, the first step would be installing the pipelines in the dedicated environment, and then later configuring them, and finally sharing those pipelines with the business users, right? So those are the 3 areas that you might need to do. So I got a quick demo, but I'll show you first how the pipelines are going to look like. At this point of time, like I mentioned, it might look pretty basic. You won't get what you see as a pro dev version, where if you're working in Dynamics 365 or doing other ALMs with the tools such as Azure DevOps, but it's still pretty basic at this point of time. Okay. So this is the dashboard that's going to look like if you got pipeline set up. This is part of a dedicated environment. So earlier, a few months before, you had to create 2 environments or many number of environments for pipelines to set up. For each region, you had to set up. But for now, I think they made it global, which is a good improvement. So all you got to do is now one environment setup. So within the environments, I have one called the reason I got Australia pipelines is, this was, you can see, this was within that particular region where Asia region, where I was able to deploy the pipeline host within the Dynamics 365 apps. So that's the first step that you need to do. I'm just waiting for this to load. So if I look for pipelines, so this is the one that you need to install in your host environment. So once that is done, then within that environment, you'll get a model-driven app, which is going to look like this. You may not see all the information that you are seeing here. So I have been using for the demos and other things with multiple pipelines. So this dashboard also shows the run history, how many pipelines has been successful and failed. So you'll be able to see the status of all of them. So this is an important bit, pipeline, excuse me, pipeline setup. Sorry about that. Pipeline setup. Currently, you have to do it manually here. Coming to the pipeline setup and click on new, you give the name and then provide the description. And once you're happy with that, you have to do few steps, which is the first one would be linking the developer environments. So here you could either add the existing environments that you got, or maybe create a new development environment. So this is where I currently it's still like manual process where you need to go and pick even the environment ID. But I wish it's going to populate all the environment IDs or the environments that are already available within the tenant. So that is one limitation as we speak. And the other one would be, once you know the developer environments that this pipeline is going to use, so you need to have different stages. So in this case, I configured the test and prod. So within the test, I can pick up what's the target environment, and this target environment here is the thing that very important one that we need to know. This should be a managed environment for the pipelines to work, right? So once you have that one associated, then you will have the stage for the test, and then the prod one, the previous stage for the production one is going to be a test environment. So that's the configuration part. And then once you configure it, you have to go to the pipelines and then click on this shared button and then click on manage access. Until you add people here, this pipeline is not going to be available for your business users. And there is no group support yet. So you'll be able to add people here and then provide them the read access. And there is one more thing that you need to be aware of. You might not see this read option enabled. If you add the users, then what you need to do is, for this particular user, you go back to your environment where the host Power Platform environment is, and then look for the users. There are a few new roles that are being added. So which is, for example, if I go to manage security roles, there is a Power Platform as in deployment pipeline roles. So you will see these deployment pipeline administrator, deployment pipeline user. So you need to grant a role for that particular user. Otherwise, you won't be able to share. So those are the 3 steps that you need to do. You need to have dedicated environment for the host, and then you go and configure your environments for the pipeline, and finally share those pipelines. And once you do that, your end users will be able to see the pipelines. So in this case, here's Pradeep, and then you could see list of pipelines that he got access to. Right, and then he will be able to deploy the solutions to the target environments. Any comments? I'm just looking at the chat briefly.
Yes, there is a question again
Yeah.
from Sarath, I think. Can we use
Ah,
Power
sir.
Platform connectors to retrieve the environment details?
I haven't tried, like I mentioned, Sarath. There is a blog post that I have seen on getting the details about the pipelines and adding those. So I still need to explore if it is possible to automate, because manually adding them is a bit of task. Once we will be able to automate, that would be an ideally an option where someone requests for the environments, you provision the environments, and also automate the pipeline creation, which I'll shortly talk about. Because of the manual process, there are a few challenges for the admin, which I'll talk about when I discuss about Power Platform pipelines, the personal pipelines as in.
There is one more from Shivaji. You
Yeah,
can go unmute if you want.
yeah, Shivaji, please.
Yeah, so hi Devendra. So
Hey.
the question is, from my end is, as you mentioned, we can set up a single environment for the pipeline. That is what I understood. And for that purpose, we have to go to the D365 area, and then from there we can install the current feature, something that you just like confirm on that. I mean, in the
Yeah. So what you need to do is you need to have a dedicated environment for hosting the pipelines.
Okay.
And within that, you need to go to D365 apps
Mhm.
and then install the pipelines. So then you'll be able to get the pipeline host available for you.
Okay. Okay.
That's the requirement. Yeah.
Yeah, got it, Devendra. Yeah, thanks for the clarity.
No worries. This is called custom host. There is a default Power Platform host as well, which enables people use personal pipelines. But ideally, if you're an admin, you want them to use custom hosts and pipelines that you are creating.
Okay. Okay. Got it, Devendra. Yeah.
No
Thank you.
worries. Thanks. Yeah. Feel free to stop me if I'm not making sense. Thank you. All right. So, and the next option would be once someone sees the pipelines. So the HR pipeline in this case, and you will see the versions and everything, and then you can go ahead and deploy those solutions. So this is going to do the validation and everything. It's still pretty good in terms of it's going to validate the connection references and a lot of dependencies and everything. And it does take time, depends on how many components your solution got, and then it validates and it provides where it is going to be deployed, what's the version, and everything. So you can see automatically the screen is changing here in terms of connections that is required, environment variables, and other things. One thing though, I'm going to touch base on the challenges when you're actually deploying them. If you got any SharePoint lists and sites, so make sure you clear those variables before you go ahead and deploy. Because the challenge with that one is, if you go to the environment variables, first time it works fine. You can pick up a targeted one, in this case, pipelines demo prod and the list. That all looks fine. But when you do consecutively in the future updates, it doesn't work sometimes as expected. So my recommendation would be go to the objects, go to your environment variables, always edit them, and then clear both the default and the current values, which I have done already here. But it won't be looking at this way. So you will always have the current site and variables to also make this export value to no. Then that picks up the target values properly. Because when you do the upgrade in future, you want your solutions to use the target values, not the source values, if that makes sense. So that's one thing that I have seen quite regularly. And also a lot of times there is a confusion about default value and the current value. I think the reason was the default values basically to support ISVs. So yeah, make sure you use the way it works, right? So the other thing would be once you got the pipelines and everything set up, the next step basically is going to be, there are a few more options where you will see, okay, let's go to the next one. There are quite a lot of use cases where you want to extend the pipelines, as in, so you got business users, they are developing solutions in the dev, but you don't want to give them access to the prod, right? So now what you can do is you can basically say, delegate the deployment to someone else so that they can approve you the deployment. So that way, the makers doesn't need to have access to the prod. Very common scenario, right? So that's, there are a few steps that you need to do within the pipelines. There are options. You can use is delegated deployment as an option. And again, you might need to use the Power Automate flows to support at this point of time. Personally, I haven't started using this as in like the use cases, but if it comes, then probably you might need to use the Power Automate solutions. Within the MSDN, you got few Power Automate solutions available, so start using them as a starting point. So this would be the experience. If you don't give them access, or if you enable the delegated deployment option, so this is the message they will see. Deployments will be pending until someone is going to approve it. Whereas once they deploy, they'll say like your request is pending for the deployment. They also potentially have an option to cancel the deployment if they want. And as an approver, if someone add you as a delegated person, then you will receive an email that will be requested by so and so. What's the pipeline and all the information that is required. Right? Either you could approve or reject, and this is pretty familiar one, right? Because it's using Power Automate flow. I'll briefly show you guys on how it's going to look like, just the experience. So within the pipeline, where you have deployment stages, so you can define the delegated deployment for both the stages. So this is the tick box where you have a stage owner option or even the service principal. So in this case, I'm just using the staged owner, but you would be able to use service principal as well. So if I go ahead and save this one for the test, and then if I go back to this particular user, and if I refresh that, I will be seeing similar experience where the delegated deployment option is enabled, and he would be able to see this message, and the deployment process will be still the same. So he will keep on seeing this particular one. Whereas for the prod, I haven't enabled, so only for the test, then the deployment process. But it won't deploy until unless someone is going to approve it. So while it is validating, I'll go back, quickly show you the Power Automate solution. Again, this is available in MSDN, where there is a Power Automate flow that's actually listening for the events. And within the environment variable, this is where you will define the approvers. And for them, they will get this particular email that I was talking about. So directly they can go and approve or reject that particular request. Okay. But pretty basic, this one, like I said, I haven't seen people using it yet, at least. And then there is a personal pipelines option. This is where things get interesting, where they don't have to wait for the admins, but they can, as soon as they go to their developer environments, they will be able to create the pipelines. And it supports only 3 environments. They can't share with everyone. But still, yeah, it's not there yet. That's what I would say. Yes, Avni, you got a question? You're on mute, sorry.
Yeah, sorry. Global problem. Yeah,
All
so
good.
yeah, so I just wanted to check, like, is there any way that we can stop them from creating personal pipeline? Right, so that, like, accidentally people might be trying out, and we want very specific people to have that ability, but still don't want to stop them from creating their customization, but they should not be able to create pipelines,
Yeah, great
personal
question.
pipelines. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I think when you go back to the previous discussion where when they get a requirement, you give them two environments, right? As soon as you analyze that particular environment and other things
Mhm.
need ALM support or operations in future, you would immediately go and provision the pipeline by yourself before you give them, okay, these are the environments and you go and access. So what happens is if you add those environments already to the custom host, they won't be able to use personal pipelines. So the
Okay.
experience would be something like this. Probably I'll go to the different screen where I got a different user. If I go to a solution, they won't be able to create the pipelines by themselves. That will get disabled if you go ahead and add it to a different pipeline. So you can see this particular user can't create any pipeline.
Great. Okay, great.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. That answers the question.
No worries. Yeah. So most of the common errors is people getting between the personal pipelines and custom host. So make sure you use the custom host one. The other one is the issue with the pipelines currently is it just shows all the pipelines that I have access to rather than see here. I'm in a personal environment. It doesn't make sense for me to see HR pipeline. So I think that's one of the error again in the pipelines. I would ideally want this to be filtered and see only the pipelines that are relevant to my environment that is associated with. If you're an admin, you might see even a lot more of them, which is not a great experience, right? And you could, like you have seen, you will be able to redeploy solutions and cancel the deployment as well. That experience is there. If you're an admin, I think this is the one you're going to like it, the fourth link. So if they create even the personal pipeline, when you add it, you get this error saying that this is already associated with the personal pipeline. So what you can do is you can go and click on this force link, and that will force the environment to use the custom host. So that's an option. Um, um, and yeah, I think so. This is the experience for the end user. They might see this one like this is already associated with the custom host, so they can't create the pipelines. But again, this is not friendly experience. You might get more tickets with this approach. So hopefully the experience will be improved in future. Like I mentioned, I think I already spoken to some of the lessons learned, but especially with the environment variables, make sure you clear those values and understand the difference between the personal pipelines and the custom host, which is very, very important if you're managing a lot of people in the business developing solutions. And we saw already that all pipelines are getting displayed is not a great experience. And then adding those environments to the custom host is the way to go. Hopefully we will be able to automate. And then the pipelines, again, the basic stage. So if you're from Dynamics 365 background, you got an update option. I don't think they will provide that update option. So it's always going to be default one is upgrade only, which makes sense because you don't want to complicate this one for the business users. Right. With that, I'll open for the questions. Hopefully I didn't bore you guys. But if anyone got any specific questions, comments, yeah, feel free to come out of the mute and ask.
Um, I have just one question.
Yeah,
Actually, this
please.
is a very, very much needed feature in Power Platform, right? I mean, we have been waiting for this for so long, and I do understand this is in preview, and maybe over a couple of months it might be ready where we can move the complex solution using the pipeline as well. But interim, apart from the challenges or limitations that you mentioned in current scenario, are there any connector specific challenges, as in when we manually move things over, one of the limitation is if we don't have service principal and if we are using multiple accounts, we do come across a lot of issue. So where I'm trying to get is, are there any adjustment that might have to be done after the solutions are moved, or that is something that we have not experienced so far?
Yeah, this one is Avni. Power Platform Pipelines is not in preview currently, so you could still use it.
Yeah.
But it's only, I mean, they keep on improving some of those features. As in, it's
Right.
pretty basic though. Like you
Yeah.
mentioned, if you got a scenarios where you got multiple solutions, it doesn't support.
Solutions.
Yeah,
Right.
it's only for
Yeah.
one particular solution.
Sorry.
But I also don't expect, if business is developing solutions, they won't be building multiple solutions, right? They would be
Right.
always
Yeah.
building simple solutions. There is a service principal delegated deployment option in this one,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't think it's going to support the one that you're looking for. So you
Mm-hmm.
might want to look for the advanced ALM options such as ADO ideally.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay. Okay. Sounds good. Thanks, Devendra. This was a great session. Thank you for your time.
glad you like it. Thank you.
Go SK, you can go on mute.
Right. Hello.
Hey.
So I have a question regarding this will support patch solution as well. So for an instance, I have deployed a base solution. So after that, I've created a patch solution from that one. Can I create a pipeline for the patch solution and it will apply the upgrade and everything in the single pipeline, or?
Yeah, the patch one is an interesting option, right? Currently, I think Microsoft is not encouraging patch solutions. Were good back then when the managed solutions was not improved that much. So currently, I think Power Platform Pipelines is just focus would be mostly on
The base solution.
yeah, base solution upgrade only. So even you won't find even the update option. And again, the focus of the Power Platform Pipelines at this point of time is very basic, where you got business people developing solutions, or you got simple solutions where patch might not be even. I think like, what Microsoft is trying to do here is explaining solutions concepts to the business itself is a challenge. So they're not going at update or patch concepts for the pipelines. I don't see them doing that.
Okay.
Even now, they're, even if you're doing other ALM options, so they would be even suggesting to not to use patch as a recommended one.
Okay, why I asked this question is we came across a scenario in our organization. So
Right.
there are nearly 5 implementation or 5 changes or 5 bugs has been fixed in the UAT. Now I want to move the components to the production.
Right.
In that case, there is a plugin is also there. The plugin
Right.
which involves all the 5 components. So in that case, I want to move only the first 3, not the remaining 2.
Right.
So this
Makes
is why I
sense.
bring up this question.
Yeah. Pipelines, I don't think
Mm.
Power Platform Pipelines, I don't think they would reach to that
Okay. Even in the
scale.
DevOps pipeline also we are facing the issue.
I see.
So yeah, so we need to, I mean, in our company we need to build a deployment strategy, but we are struggling to on this particular scenario. There are many scenarios out there. It's just only an example I brought up here.
Right.
Right, I'm good. Thanks, Velegandla.
Yeah. Thanks.
Just a quick one from me, Devendra. So,
Yeah.
in terms of the region,
Mhm.
right? So, does it support a different region? So, I have some in States, some in Australia, some in
Yeah.
different region. So, does
so-
it still work?
Currently, yes. So they have this option. So if you go to the advanced settings, so you got the cross geo solution deployment, Raghavan. So they recently introduced that one. Yeah.
I see. Okay, that's good.
Mm.
That's good to know.
Yeah. Earlier, it was a challenge for us to tell them not to go with the pipelines, but I think now they made it easy.
I think we are right on time. So,
Yep.
thanks again. I think really a wonderful session and so useful for us in terms of what we are doing. Just a quick thing, everyone in the meeting. So there are other user groups in New Zealand, just in case if anyone is interested. So you can see on my screen. There is few more things. Some from Rami and some from Richard Birdies. Usually led by all the MVPs based in different cities. So if you guys are interested, anyway, this link will be posted to you guys along with the slides from Devendra, whomever attended. So that's one thing. Again, uh, so useful, Devendra. I think it's a wonderful session, and thank you so much for your time as well. And this is one of the, I think, most needed feature for the makers.
Yeah. Thank you, and I really appreciate people turning out. I think there were a few questions I might not have answered, but happy to come back. Yeah, feel free to ping me on either LinkedIn or on my blog. But yeah, happy to chat.
Great. Excellent. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Thanks for joining.
Thanks so
Have a
much.
great evening. Bye.
Yeah. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.